this Shabbat. So, okay, I want you to imagine for a moment that you have a time machine that lets you go back just 1 year and gives you the opportunity to make an investment, knowing what's about to happen in this pandemic. Now, you might think it'd be smartest to invest in companies like Zoom or DoorDash, but I actually might think about investing in elastic. Elastic, like the elastic that's used in waistbands and sweatpants and leggings, because these have become the ultimate in work from home attire. In the first few months of the pandemic, fashion giants for formal and professional wear like Neiman Marcus, J. Crew, and Brooks Brothers filed for bankruptcy. But athleisure, that's what the industry calls sweatpants as fashion, athleisure has soared. Vancouver's own Lululemon, for example, grew 50% in value in the last year. At some point, it seems either pre-pandemic or because of it, our societal view of sweatpants and the like has taken a major turn. Take, for example, this bit from a Seinfeld episode from nearly 30 years ago, as Jerry berates George for wearing sweatpants.
So I'll see you later, huh? Yeah. Hello? Yeah, he's here. Hey, it's for you. Oh, yeah? He's getting comfortable here, man? Hey, again with the sweatpants. I'm uncomfortable. You know the message you're sending out to the world with these sweatpants? You're telling the world, I give up. I can't compete in normal society. I'm miserable, so I might as well be comfortable. Hold on a second, I got another.
It's funny. It's funny because it's true, but it's funny because our attitudes have actually changed quite a bit. And the prevalence of work from home has altered our self-understandings about what it means to wear clothing for work, to be professional and comfortable. Many have asked if the pandemic has caused the fall of the high fashion industry, or was it already on the way out? An industry perhaps that it was on its way to collapse just got a bit of a catalyst to drive in its ultimate demise. When we watch television shows, I know things maybe from the 70s or earlier, I'm always struck by seeing people so dressed up in scenes at an airport. Who can imagine dressing up in a necktie or pantyhose to get on an airplane these days? Well, not that most of us can imagine getting on an airplane anyhow. But this cycle of becoming more casual in our fashion seems to repeat itself over and over again. In clothes from sports or manual labor and beyond, it seems that people with cultural cachet decide to violate expectations by wearing something comfortable and casual outside of its normal context. Some people get mad, and then everyone gets used to it. In general, I would say I am a person who greatly values comfort. I don't think that clothing should restrict us from feeling fully present or be so uncomfortable that we begin to resent the activity for which the clothing is prescribed. But I also wonder, will our extreme leap into leisure wear that we are living in right now cause us to lose some of the decorum and honor that dressing up provides toward establishing the sanctity of a holiday or occasion? The Shabbat, as Jeff taught us, we read in Parashat Tetzave about the design of the priestly garments worn by the Kohen Gadol in his service as high priest. God instructs Moses, "Make sacral vestments for your brother Aaron, for glory and beauty," and then goes on to explain in detail the design of the breastplate, the ephod, the robe, tunic, headdress, and sash. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory teaches that this term for glory and beauty does not mean for the glory and beauty of the priest. It means for the glory of God and the beauty of God's presence. The task of the Kohen, and the message of his clothes was to be a signal of transcendence, to point in himself something beyond himself, to be a living symbol of the divine presence in the midst of the nation. I think there is an important lesson in Rabbi Sachs's interpretation. If our comfortable clothing provides us the opportunity to position ourselves to see our place more clearly or with more focus, then it is doing its duty as an instrument to bring an individual into sacred alignment with the Holy One. But if our clothing is leading us to laziness or irreverence, then it is problematic. Sometimes when I check in with members of the shul about how all of you are handling being at home, many of you tell me how grateful you are for the technology that allows us to remain connected and join together safely for Shabbat. And then there's sometimes a little pause as some of you say how much you love coming to services in your pajamas or comfortable clothes and sitting on the couch in your living room. Some of you have shared that actually being comfortable has given you a potential for more focus in your prayer. So what is the balance of finding comfort on the one hand and being respectful in our dress as we prepare for shul and for Shabbat, both now and when we return in person? I think the answer lies in the Talmud. At least that's where I find a lot of my answers. But there's this really interesting discussion about appropriate Shabbat attire between two rabbis. Rav Huna shares that in an ideal situation, a person should change into new clothes for Shabbat. But in a case where someone does not have other clothing to change into, they should untuck their clothing and let their garments hang down in deference to Shabbat, as it used to be the custom of wealthy people to wear their clothes loosely. The other rabbi, Rav Safra, objects to this idea because he says that it would appear as haughtiness to wear clothing like that. And finally, an anonymous voice, the voice of the Talmud, answers and says, because one doesn't untuck their clothes on weekdays and now does so in honor of Shabbat, it is not haughtiness. Rather, one is acting in deference to Shabbat. The Talmud is giving us a clear message here, that the value of honoring Shabbat is what matters most. A time in which you make a conscientious decision to change your dress to give honor to the distinction of the day. For some, that might mean dressing up in fancy, beautiful clothing. But it might be wearing something comfortable. What matters is wearing something that makes Shabbat feel different. What makes Shabbat feel like Shabbat. Right now in our pandemic lives, we might be wearing sweatpants or bedroom slippers to Shabbat services, and that is okay. But perhaps we can find other ways to adjust our clothing to truly make a distinction about holy time. Maybe try something going forward, or maybe you already have, something that makes Shabbat different, that helps you recognize our sacred service on this day. Perhaps a special piece of jewelry, our kippah and talit, even Shabbat socks. Something that helps us recognize that we are still standing on holy ground. I'm sure that the fashion pendulum will swing back and eventually sweatpants will be on the outs. But no matter what the fashion, we as human beings can be transformed by an awareness of our place in the world. Dressing differently to give honor to God and to sacred time only elevates our sense of presence for glory and for beauty. Shabbat Shalom.